my inner nerd.
So what's the scariest thing you've ever done?
If you ain't a garden, you ain't gangster.
Oh, I know that like the back of my hand.
First, let me introduce myself. My name is Alvaro, and I'm a TESOL teacher. I teach English for speakers of other languages. And I decided to do this assignment about the use of TED Talks in the classroom. First of all, TED Talks, they are not as in-depth like Wikipedia articles. They do contain information, but at best, they spark a conversation. So imagine listening to a lecture about a specialist in an author, or a specialist in the field of physics or quantum mechanics, something like that. And then picture yourself talking to this person, or even further, if you listen to a TED Talk about a person discussing an author of a book, how do you think this person would interact with the author in real life? So these are the kind of sparks that TED Talks aim for. They can bring diverse voices, questions, and conflicts into classroom discussions. So for example, physics, you can talk about nonlinear physics, you can talk about different timelines, you can talk about superconductors. History, you can go from the history of how trees impact a city's development to talks about rights movements and even creativity in schools. There are many teachers that use TED Talks in classes, sometimes effectively, other times not so much. But the best way is for the role of the teacher would be to first check out TED Talks or TED Ed. TED Ed is a branch which is packed full of short animated lessons, and they are designed for K-12 students, at most K-12 students, but I find myself amused browsing the catalog of TED Ed. You can filter by age, you can filter by topic, and whenever using a talk or a lesson, the best way to approach it is to prepare discussion questions. So you can get students to think before getting to class, during class, and after class. It's an interesting approach having essential questions to accompany the talk. Or another way would be asking students to research TED Talks that carry meaning for their generation, for their circle, like social circle, or their interests. And when TED Talks are brought into the classroom, students can better grasp topics they might not fully understand at first glance. They can think critically about their views on the world, and they can discuss big ideas alongside their own. So, for example, Albert Einstein having dinner together with William Shakespeare can be there with you and can align with your thoughts. The next part of my presentation is about curriculum alignment. So first, as it is shown in the picture, all the units deal with different topics. So the first one is bringing dreams to life, which is about inventions and entrepreneurial mindset. Say it your way about language to the rescue, about first responders in catastrophes, and so on and so forth. So each one of those relates to an area of expertise. Could it be geography, history, linguistics, and so on? So let's take Unit 1, for example, and show how TED Talks can be used to deal with this. So first, going through the activities, there is group discussion, which deals with engaging students, which is part 3 of this presentation. So there would be a photo, a caption, a lot of discussion, imagining what students would do if they were in the person's shoes. That is an activity of critical thinking related to entrepreneurs. Then moving on and consolidating the information, then we would analyze and interpret an infographic about businesses that fail, businesses that succeed, all related to the world of entrepreneurship. Then students would feel more confident. They would answer this questionnaire about what makes a good entrepreneur. They would see themselves starting a business. And then this leads to the technology that I've chosen, which is TED Talk. And here there is an example about an entrepreneur talking and explaining her point of view. In this case, it's 5 ways to kill your dreams, but this person is actually the developer of many startups, and she talks about her expertise in this area. Then, to conclude, there would be assessment. So here we have the final part of a class or a series of classes that they would put it together. So there is synthesizing, more critical thinking, group work, establishing a community, and in the end, preparing themselves to give a presentation or to give a talk. So now to the topic of engaging students. The assessment is a project that they have to create together. So this is a way of engaging students in groups. But during the class, I have these activities here I'm going to show. So the first one, analyzing the TED Talk. Students can discuss in small groups or as a big group the main ideas of the talk, which is basically to just is right or wrong answer, just simple. Then moving on to more elaborated tasks, there is the second part that we can divide the topics, we can divide the talk into segments, and then students, they have open-ended questions to discuss, again to discuss in groups. Then only orally they can discuss the first part about the video, about the presenter, and the second part about how the presenter talks, how the person communicates, and then think critically by putting themselves into the person's shoes. I found this reference number 1 in a website called TED Blog. The topic is how teachers can best use TED Talks in class from the perspective of a student. So in this case, the student talks about how her teacher used to make students wonder how the presenter would talk to them face to face, or how the presenter would talk to the subject of her presentation or his presentation. The second reference is Cambridge by Cambridge. using TED Talks in the classroom, and Cambridge argues that it's very hard to bring specialists from different areas into the classroom constantly. So if you adopt TED Talks and use them to guide your class, you can always have a different lecturer participating in your class. And then this person would deal with a plethora of topics, and students could discuss a variety of them. Topic number 4 is evaluation strategies. Just like assessment, it's also very important to identify the gaps during your class. So, as it was said in the book, there is a number of ways to do that. So there is self-reflection, and there is feedback. I usually get feedback from my students and colleagues. Sometimes I ask a colleague to watch my class and provide me some constructive feedback. And one more thing I like to do is, as you can see in the photo, I have a Google Drive with each of my students' portfolio. So they have free access to modify their own portfolios. And if they want to include texts, compositions, questions, anything, they just have to update it, and I'll receive a notification. I'll go there and I'll check. I'll provide some comments, and then they have to revise what they have previously written. So my evaluation strategies, as said, are peer feedback, student feedback, portfolios, which is also a way of getting student feedback. There is the theory, and as mentioned before, the websites.